Trump, trying to undermine the BRICS, which he views as a threat to U.S. hegemony, may be unwittingly fulfilling the aspirations of the BRICS founders, who aim to create a cohesive and coordinated force to resist American trade influence. In this video, we will explore how Trump is making BRICS stronger and united. As U.S. President Donald Trump rolled out his latest round of punishing tariffs against the world's biggest emerging economies, his goal was to weaken BRICS, fracture its unity, and force each member to bargain with Washington on Trump's terms. Instead, Trump has triggered a diplomatic chain reaction that is drawing China, India, Brazil, Russia, and South Africa closer together than ever before. Now, BRICS members have been stepping up political contact, economic coordination, and even personal diplomacy. The U.S. President's America First tariff barrage may be laying the foundation for a far more consolidated BRICS front, the nightmare scenario for Washington's trade strategists. Donald Trump's latest tariff package is comprehensive and particularly tough on BRICS members. India and Brazil have both been hit with steep 50% tariffs on a range of goods, while South Africa faces a 30% duty on its mineral and metal exports. China has a temporary 90-day pause on new tariffs, which is currently in effect and is set to expire in November. After this period, more duties are likely to be imposed if talks fail. Trump imposed 25% tariffs on Indian imports to the U.S. and another 25% as a penalty for buying Russian oil. He has also hinted at imposing similar tariffs on Beijing for its ties with Russia. Trump's strategy is to hit each country differently, offer selective relief, and try to prevent them from uniting. But recent diplomatic activity among BRICS nations suggests that this divide and pressure approach is starting to backfire. How is Trump unwittingly pushing BRICS for unity? BRICS, which has often been perceived as a loosely connected group lacking strategic cohesion, is discovering a common purpose in response to Trump's tariffs. Confronted with economic pressure from the United States, the member nations now share a collective grievance, a necessity to coordinate against the repercussions, and a chance to establish themselves as a counterbalance to Western trade supremacy. What was once a scattered grouping is beginning to unite with a clearer shared purpose. Trump's strategy of divide and conquer is proving counterproductive, as it is instead encouraging BRICS nations to unite. Although the tariffs may enhance his image as a tough negotiator in the short term, they are undermining the long-term influence of the United States. Each new tariff accelerates precisely what Washington seeks to prevent: increased cooperation among BRICS countries, diminished dependence on the dollar, and a consolidated front in global trade negotiations. A common pushback against U.S. trade dominance and acceleration of de-dollarization. One of the key effects of Trump's tariff agenda has been the perception of the U.S. as an unpredictable and self-interested actor in the global trade system. This has encouraged BRICS countries to frame themselves as an alternative voice for the global South, advocating for a more multipolar and equitable international economic order. The tariffs have thus created a shared grievance that fosters unity among BRICS members, especially in resisting what they see as U.S. economic coercion. U.S. trade restrictions and sanctions have made BRICS countries more determined to reduce their reliance on the U.S. dollar, particularly in bilateral and inter-BRICS trade. The push for a BRICS common currency or a shared payment system, such as using local currencies in trade settlements or developing a BRICS-backed digital currency, has gained new momentum. Trump's trade policy is viewed as a trigger for this effort, as many of these countries see dollar dominance as a tool of American economic influence. Boosting intra-BRICS trade and infrastructure plans, faced with rising trade costs when dealing with the U.S., the BRICS nations are expanding efforts to trade more with each other. There has been an uptick in bilateral agreements, preferential trade deals, and infrastructure connectivity projects within BRICS and its extended partners. China, for example, is promoting its Belt and Road Initiative in alignment with BRICS trade corridors, and India is increasing its outreach to Brazil and South Africa in agriculture and tech trade. Trump's tariffs are, in effect, creating incentives for BRICS members to diversify their trade portfolios and reduce vulnerability to U.S. policy swings. Political and strategic realignment. BRICS countries are also using Trump's economic nationalism as a diplomatic rallying point to attract non-Western countries to their fold. In forums like the BRICS Plus Summit and the New Development Bank, U.S. tariffs and trade threats are often cited as justification for the creation of parallel institutions that aim to rival the World Bank, the IMF, and the WTO, bodies historically influenced by the United States. China and India are increasing high-level meetings for normalizing relations. It's important to note, however, that BRICS is not a fully unified bloc. India and China, for instance, have had persistent border tensions and competing strategic interests. Yet, U.S. trade pressure is helping these countries to come together in favor of collective economic interests. One of the more surprising developments has been Beijing's soft diplomacy toward New Delhi. Relations have been frosty since the 2020 Galwan Valley clashes, but the U.S. tariff squeeze appears to have nudged China and India into pragmatic engagement. China voiced its opposition to the U.S. announcement of tariffs against India. The spokesperson of China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Wei Jiaquan, in his press briefing, while responding to media queries, called the act an abuse of tariffs. He said, China's opposition to the abuse of tariffs is consistent and clear. Beijing's fresh overtures to New Delhi come at a time when Prime Minister Narendra Modi is scheduled to visit China later this month for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization (SCO) summit, where he is expected to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping. The meeting could mark a major diplomatic push to stabilize a relationship that border tensions and strategic mistrust have long marred. It clearly states that when faced with external economic threats, BRICS leaders are willing to sideline disputes in favor of collective leverage. For Trump, this is the exact opposite of the outcome he sought. Instead of playing Beijing and New Delhi off each other, his tariffs have given them a reason and the political cover to re-engage. Brazil and India step in to discuss trade within the BRICS framework. Brazilian President Lula da Silva, himself facing a crippling 50% tariff from Washington, has publicly signaled solidarity with India's position on unilateral trade aggression. He dialed PM Modi to discuss the imposition of unilateral tariffs, exploring the possibility of greater integration between the two countries. Backing New Delhi's upcoming BRICS presidency, Lula accepted PM Modi's invitation to visit India early next year. Lula has rejected direct talks with the U.S. president, saying they would only lead to humiliation. Putin to visit India soon for annual bilateral summit. Trump has imposed an additional 25% tariff on India as a penalty for the country's continued imports of Russian oil, accusing it of fueling Moscow's war machine against Ukraine. The U.S. president's deadline for Russia to end its war in Ukraine or suffer severe economic punishment expires soon, but it's unclear how he plans to proceed amid new efforts toward a summit with Vladimir Putin and delicate trade negotiations with China. Russia has slammed Trump for illegally pressuring countries like India to cut trade ties with Moscow. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters, "We hear many statements that are in fact threats, attempts to force countries to cut trade relations with Russia. We do not consider such statements to be legal." He added, "We believe that sovereign countries should have and do have the right to choose their own trading partners for trade and economic cooperation, and to choose for themselves the forms of trade and economic cooperation that are in the interests of a particular country." The timing of the meeting between Modi and Putin, coming amid the ongoing trade tensions of Washington with both New Delhi and Moscow, is noteworthy. India and Russia have enjoyed strong ties since the Soviet era, with trade and investment growing steadily. Trump's tariffs are indirectly uniting the BRICS countries by presenting a common external challenge. While internal differences persist, the perception of an assertive and protectionist United States is accelerating BRICS cooperation in trade, financial independence, and geopolitical influence. This unity may not be ideological, but it is increasingly strategic and potentially long-lasting if U.S. policies continue along this trajectory. Thank you for tuning in, and I encourage you to subscribe to our channel for fresh content on crucial global matters. Additionally, please like the video and share your insights on the topic in the comments section below. Have a nice day.